What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Massive Attack. And we're returning to Mezzanine 1998, and I'd like to give a big shout out to Stephan, not only for sharing the Massive Attack material, but he recently sent me a very kind donation on PayPal. So once again, Stephan, you are awesome. Thank you so very much. And we are continuing, as I said, with Mezzanine, and the next track is Dissolved Girl. So there's a bit of poetry to the title. Obviously, being dissolved doesn't sound pleasant. It sounds like disintegrating, becoming or reducing to your constituent parts in a medium, in a, is it a solute? I'm suddenly showing how long ago it's been since I formally studied chemistry. But no, it's the solute is that which dissolves, right? The solvent is that which does the dissolving. That's right, water, the universal solvent. So yes, the girl here is the solute. And I wonder, I assume, of course, and let's hope, this is emotional, this is figurative meaning, and it relates to someone who, because of her surrounding environment, because of the circumstances externally, is dissolving, or rather is already dissolved. It is written in the past tense. So yeah, that doesn't sound good, that doesn't sound pleasant. I suppose it could be more complicated or surprising in terms of the theme. Maybe it's not one that'll have a full narrative, but it's more about vibes and, maybe a few lines to give a bit of a sentiment or feeling. So let's give it a listen and find out. This is Massive Attack. The tune is Dissolved Girl, and it's from their 1998 album, Mezzanine. What a wicked little tune. It had sort of a smooth yet industrial synthesis. It really had some heavy and wicked sounds, that guitar especially. And the first time it came in, you could feel it building and building, and then the tune just really went up to a higher intensity and really struck me. And the other like metallic and heavy sounds really did give it an industrial feel. But the vocals and some of the other aspects of the sonics, or some keyboard chords and so on, that had a smoothness and even a warmth to them. So it was a bit of a dichotomy, which feels like it's maybe relevant to the lyrics. Because what I took away is that she's saying she's with this person who she knows, as she puts it, is not her savior and is not giving her what she needs. It's not, she doesn't feel loved, and she thinks she probably should go, yet she can't bring herself to. And she's even saying, what's the line, or the pair of lines, something like, I could fake it and just, like, oh, I'm done with this, but she still wants more. So she's being, like, transparent in a way, saying, like, I should leave, but I'm not, because I still want this, and I can't, put on airs or pretend that this is not where I still want to be, despite me knowing better, essentially. That seems to be the essence of it. So the idea that there be this warm feeling mixed with this gritty tension and even like harder or darker intensity feels like maybe the Sonics are on some level articulating the sentiment of the themes. I will say also, people mention that, they do sample a lot of the bits in their songs and so on. And again, I thought I heard like one of the layers, and I'm, because there were a couple things happening at the same time, so I wasn't sure what it was, but I thought I heard another layer where it's like taken from a record that has a bit of a like cyclical surface noise. I thought I heard that. But either way, the Sonics, they come together nicely. It's like this, industrial trip hop meets like alternative kind of sound. So definitely a very compelling sonic mix. And it felt like there was like a purpose for that. It felt like there was a thematic reason for that. So yes, I do enjoy the vocals, and she had this like soft delivery, but there was a lot of emotion there. So it was soulful on both ends. There was a lot there, but also it had a smoothness to it. So yeah, very cool tune. As I said, I am very much enjoying getting a sense of their larger catalog, and they're a group where like, in a way, I know what to expect, and yet at the same time, like, I'm up or I'm prepared for anything when I listen to their tunes. So yeah, Massive Attack, very cool group, and ultimately big shout out to Stephan for bringing them to my attention and those who've been following this deep dive. Luca is busy with her grooming hygiene. Let me know what you think, and we will see you next time. Peace.